very happy to announce that I was able to make up some of the comics of my own based on some true context from my own interests. And thanks to this curfew that's currently going on all over my country. Of course, that's not a very fruitful place to live in, but still, that gave me some free times to write down two comic books, despite myself being into class 10, which is considered as one of the most important class, but no studies, no exams right now. And so here you go. Before I begin in this conversation, let me tell you about the context. Look, I'm very much interested into the Cold War scenarios, both on the US side and on the Soviet sides. Specifically, I'm interested in the US sides. Mostly, I'm interested in the 1960s Kennedy administration, and so both of those comics belong to those times and time periods. The first one is based on the Vietnam dilemma, and the second one is simply a very shitty story in my opinion, which was based on the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is known as on the brink of the catastrophe. And you know, when I say catastrophe during the Cold War, what does that mean? The nuclear missile launches, and that's what exactly happened into it. So let me start from the second one, because it will be easy for me to explain. The first one, so here, the first thing that happens, you need to read out the context. Here is the context for you. And then Kennedy calls Eisenhower in this story, as you can see. Kennedy calls Eisenhower. Eisenhower receives the call. Kennedy talks with him on some certain regards and then states about this very humanitarian crisis that USA is currently facing. The threat, the Soviets are trying to set up a nuclear missile facility into the Cuba. Then some sort of things happens that Eisenhower acknowledges Mr. Kennedy about that the Soviets were actually trying to attack certain lands, which is in this case Portland, Seattle, probably San Francisco, and Los Angeles, trying to attack that, which is a very big threat for the country. And then Kennedy was very shocked upon his hearing that what the hell, why was I not acknowledged about this? What was CIA doing in this case? But he acknowledged that the CIA themselves didn't believe about this idea because that was so shitty. They never expected that the states like Soviets could ever plan so. And then that was a real thing. And so he calls the SM-65 Atlas facility to call for a scramble order. They have scrambled the order, they have launched a missile. Here you go, the map is over there. And this is the launch site, as you can see, this San Cristobal, 14 October 1962. So they launched the missiles. And there's a spy satellite apparently over the USA, which is named, I named that myself, Chandikov 5. I don't know what kind of name that was, but yeah, it sounds Russian, you know. And so they detected that. So the KGB spies being acknowledged with that, they acknowledged Mr. Khrushchev was having a meeting with the Singapore embassy people that they are planning for an attack and the missile is on its way to Moscow. And also they have launched another nuclear missile to the Havana of Cuba. And now Khrushchev is very sad upon his hearing. So the KGB spies, the special force, prepared his Air Force One to get him in somewhere safe. Oh, by the way, the military has evacuated 9.3 million people out of 17 million people living in Moscow, so that less casualties happen in this case. And so on his way to somewhere safe in Siberia, in this case, he called Fidel Castro about this and acknowledged him about that. Castro, being a non-nuclear powered country, he was very sad upon his hearing. He smoked the cigars and thought to himself, what have I done to get this sort of things? And lastly, three of them were very concerned on what is about to take place. How cruel can human civilization get in this case? And they were calculating the casualties that will be taking place within a few hours, maybe. So that was pretty much the first one. I know that might not sound a little great, might be a gross story in my opinion, but still, I made that up myself. So, you know, don't judge, please. This is my first time writing. And the other one is Diplomacy and Defiance. They have a pretty much very simple story. This is not really a story, something you can learn from probably. The Vietnam dilemma. This one starts from Kennedy's visit to the South Vietnam. Look at this. This is the South Vietnam command campsite. They were setting that up. The soldiers were setting that up. And Kennedy being acknowledged about the fact that Mr. Nixon, being the opponent leader, was already there into that valley highlands. So he paid a visit to him, and upon his visit, they were arguing with each other about the accords they were not following, and the resolutions they're disobeying. So they might have to face trials for this sort of things. And you know, Kennedy was not interested into making diplomatic relations what Nixon was interested into. He was interested into defiance, Kennedy. Although Kennedy was a very intelligent leader in my story, but still, Nixon being a vigilant leader, again, in my story, he was interested into diplomatic relations. And lastly, their conclusion goes on like in this way: their concerns are very appreciable, but still their different opinions have caused the US to get split into half. That was a concerning thing in my opinion, and that's all this comedy has to offer. You know, I was actually suffering from too much of time in my life, and so I thought of making this video out, otherwise I wouldn't have made this video. Thank you very much for watching. Assalamu alaikum.